Hello and welcome to another historic video, and not just any historic video, but a Historic Pauper video, a format we don't get to play very often on Arena, but this week it's back with a midweek magic, a format where only common cards are allowed, so the barrier to entry is incredibly low, perfect for trying out all sorts of new strategies, since it's very easy to build a whole bunch of new decks. So I thought it'd be a fun idea to update the hexproof deck, which I think is one of the more powerful strategies you can be playing in the format, especially with the recent addition of Slippery Bogle to the format. Just yesterday this was added as a common on Arena, since we already had the uncommon printing as a special guest in Lorwyn Eclipsed, but now we also have the original Eventide printing at common. So now alongside Gladecover Scout we have 8 of these 1-mana 1/1 creatures with hexproof, making these perfect for stacking up a whole bunch of auras, as we don't have to fear opposing removal taking them out. Then Audacity also got a common printing on Arena through Pioneer Masters, normally an uncommon, so we get 2 additional power and trample. There's Sentinel's Eyes giving +1/+1 and Vigilance. Ethereal Armor is one of the big payoffs, giving +1/+1 for each enchantment we control, as well as First Strike. At 2 mana there's Angelic Gift for flying, also draws a card when it enters. Dog Umbra is our removal spell to maybe slow down opposing aggro decks that don't have hexproof. Can also enchant our own creature if we need Umbra armor, doesn't come up a whole lot. And then at 3 mana, another big payoff is Ancestral Mask, giving +2/+2 for each author enchantment on the battlefield. This also counts opposing enchantments, but with all our cheap auras, this can get out of hand very quickly. And then we also have Squire's Devotion, giving +1/+1 and a lifelink, great for winning any racing situations against other aggro decks. And we also get to make a lifelinking vampire token, which can come in handy, since one of the few ways our opponents have of dealing with our creatures is through an edict effect, as it's known, making us sacrifice a creature which gets around hexproof. Now we can maybe just sacrifice our vampire token instead. And then I'm also rounding things out with 2 copies of Heliod's Pilgrim, which can search up whatever aura we need in certain situations. The mana base, of course, is not going to be great in Pauper, but we do have Blossoming Sands at least gaining a life when it enters tapped, and then 9 forests and 9 plains can reduce the deck down to 2 colors. I used to try this in 3 colors, playing blue as well, but now with 2 colors the mana base should be a little bit more consistent at least. So yeah, let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play. We need a white mana, and then if we find it, it's a good hand, but not an amazing hand. So I think we can do a little bit better. Alright, this is a bit better. And then Pilgrim might be excessive, even though it can find our actual payoffs like Ethereal Armor and Ancestral Mask. Still requires an extra land. My sequencing would go turn 1 Scout, turn 2... probably Ethereal Armor or Angelic Gift to hit my land drop. So maybe Sentinel's Eyes is not actually needed, and I'll keep the Pilgrim. We might need Lifelink if we're up against an aggro deck. We might want to get Ancestral Mask. Alright, opponent on blue-black with artifacts, so terrified of a Tithing Blade. So I'll start with Angelic Gifts, which finds a land. So Grixis artifacts, and a Volt Scourge will get in the way. Alright, so cannot quite play Heliod's Pilgrim yet. Could attack and use Dog Umbra to essentially trade for Volt Scourge. Could matter if our opponent's going to put a Cranial Ram on the Volt Scourge at some point. Or I can go Ethereal Armor pass, but then we're really weak to a Tithing Blade effect. I think I just go Blossoming Sands pass, because I'm confident that if we do get to keep our Scout in play, we'll be in pretty good shape. So now Refurbished Familiar, I can discard the Dog Umbra. And then the plan is to play the Pilgrim first. And then I'll feel a bit more comfortable going all out on the Scouts. So kind of like the Squire's Devotion here, which can give me an extra blocker, and the lifelink also doesn't hurt. Vigilance would also be another useful keyword. So unless they double Tithing Blade me, we should be fine. Now, of course, our opponent did have time to set up their big affinity payoffs. So that's where a Dog Umbra could also answer the 4-4. And our opponent's gonna put the pedal to the metal. Alright, so step 1 I think is still Squire's Devotion. And then I don't need to attack with a Scout, we can hold off Volt Scourge at least. Although, is that worth it? If they draw Cranial Ram, they could equip the Volt Scourge, so then I'm not going to want to block anyways. I guess we'll guarantee the 2 life gain. Pilgrim still blocks Percussionist. Deadly Dispute, sack Wellspring, that's a nice combo. Draw 3 cards, make a replacement artifact. And another Wellspring. But yeah, now with Ancestral Mask, we should be able to take over. Alright, Galvanic Blast the Pilgrim. So, this is interesting now. So they might have more removal and Tithing Blades in hand, which is a reason to still play more Squire's Devotions out. Can definitely take it. And draw land. So, if I want to play it absolutely safe, I would just go Squire's Devotion again, play Ethereal Armor, and then the turn after Ancestral Mask. That seems reasonable to me. And then the Vampire token can also attack, gaining 8 back up to 20. Our opponent can also chum block, maybe with Deadly Dispute they can block, sacrifice, prevent me from gaining life, but our opponent's main phasing Deadly Dispute instead. Because that would be a way for them to buy themselves more time without me gaining life. Until we find Trample, of course. Volt Scourge attacks, Familiar stays back. And a Reckoner's Bargain, more card draw. Into another Mirror Enforcer. Opponent also gained a ton of life there. And another Angelic Gift. Well, since they don't have Deadly Dispute up, I think we just Ancestral Mask to guarantee a huge chunk of life gain. I guess they could maybe block and Galvanic Blast their own creature. But nope. So we're back up to 30. So now it's just a matter of finding Audacity for Trample. Of course, Cranial Ram on their side is also pretty good with a Volt Scourge. So yeah, the game's far from over. Although I can also Angelic Gift a Vampire token to maybe get in the way. Now, of course, Scout does have First Strike, so we can block whatever creatures equipped with Cranial Ram. So we can always hit the brakes if needed. But we are down to 8, so double Galvanic Blast can do it. Alright, so maybe step 1, Angelic Gifts on a Vampire. See if that resolves. Find another Ethereal Armor. That's gotta be worth it. $29.29. So with one more Angelic Gift, I think we have it. Unless they can take out the Vampire token now. And we also found Audacity, but our opponent scoops it up. So it ended up being a very close game after all. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with Keeper. Scout into Audacity. Could have also started with Blossoming Sands. So we can guarantee Pilgrim on 3. and a Gold Hound from our opponent. So won't be able to attack with a scout. But next turn we can. So mono red with Festival Crasher. So can expect lots of cheap instants and sorceries, some cantrips. Okay, so Gold Hound can still make a man of any color. I think we just Pilgrim, get Ancestral Mask. Could also go for the lifelink enchantments. But next turn I could go Mask plus Sentinel's Eyes. And then Vigilance still helps us play defense. Second Crasher. No attacks. Can our opponent possibly trade here? These can go up to 3 power. I guess it's not impossible. So then I may need to wait until I get First Strike or Flying. Yeah, at 6 toughness, our opponent could still realistically trade. So still a bit of a waiting game, but we have a lot of great top decks. Now Flame Breather, another payoff for casting non-creature spells. And our opponent's gonna kick things off with an Ancestral Anger. ×2. So they now both trample. Yeah, opponent could threaten a one-hit KO here. Crasher's attack, but now I can also attack back with a scout. Yeah, could still die on the way back. Well, that was the best possible top deck. Squire's Devotion for lifelink. And gain 11 back up to 17. And we trample, so blocking doesn't really help. Otherwise I could have blocked and then sacrificed the Gold Hound to deny the life gain if we didn't have trample. Back up to 18. 9 toughness makes it harder for Crasher to attack. Alright, I'll block the Flame Breather. And yeah, opponent scoops it up. Sweet, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play with a Keeper. Scout into maybe an Angelic Gift to get started. Looking for Ethereal Armor and Ancestral Mask. With Heliod's Pilgrim, we essentially have 10 of those enchantments, or at least access to those enchantments that scale with the number of enchantments in play. Opponent on turn 1 planes, a Lunarch Veteran, so a life gain deck. Start with the Angelic Gift. Squire's Devotion will gain us some life, although still not quite the ultimate payoff. More veterans. Opponent likely to be running Soul Warden as well. I'll play the Squire's Devotion for now. It's going to be easier to double spell later. Cooped up. Just proves why hexproof is important. And now we can start stacking some auras onto the scout. So this is a 4-turn clock. More veterans. No need to dog Umbra. I can block. They get to make a flyer. But we've got trample here, so we're probably fine. Don't mind it if the game goes a bit longer. Hit you for 5, gain 5. We're out life gaining the life gain deck. Homestead Courage for a +1 counter. If they flash it back, they could technically trade for the scouts, although now I could put a dog Umbra on it. Or I can let them attack and then essentially give Glade Cover Scout Umbra armor, so we trade, so they don't get to keep the Phantom in play. Opponent doesn't even attack. Alright, in that case, I'll attack for them. So we get to showcase the Umbra armor interaction. So our creature's still in play. We are flooding out quite a bit here, but I think we'll still be okay. Would be a great spot to top deck a Heliod's Pilgrim. I'll take an Audacity. And now Healer's Hawk. Opponent back up to 5. If they have another Homestead Courage, I guess we have to hit the brakes for a while. Our opponent carefully reading every single aura on the Glade Cover Scout. And Banishing Light can exile one of the auras. Gets rid of Angelic Gift, so no more flying. So yeah, technically opponent can block, and we drew another land, so yeah, I'm not going to want to attack now. So they bought themselves more time. But it's just a matter of time until we find one of the aforementioned auras. And we've got quite a bit of life to spare. Vampire token's gone. And there's a Pilgrim, so that should do it. Ancestral Mask with 5 other enchantments in play. Should be more than enough. I guess an instant speed to disenchant could still hurt, but nope, opponent scoops it up. Awesome, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. We'll have to mulligan this. And we've got a keeper. Think I keep 3 lands over double Bogle. Although there are situations where we might want the extra creature. If I can guarantee Audacity into Ancestral Mask, that's not too bad. Although we'll probably need to find white mana at some point as well. Maybe being on the draw, it's a reason to keep the second creature in case your opponent's got a 1 mana discard spell. Opponent is a red-black. So yeah, could be the Affinity deck, which could have a Tithing Blade. Although we did also draw another 3-drop. Cranial Ram, of course, one of the big payoffs for the Affinity deck. So, yeah, I'll play the Audacity. At least we'll get to draw a card if our creature dies, but I'm not going to be able to attack, because I don't want to trade for the Germ. So finding Squire's Devotion would actually be pretty good, since that could give us an extra creature we can sacrifice. Same with Heliod's Pilgrim. Refurbished Familiar can discard a land now. I don't think I have a choice. Hit you for 5. Second ram is scary, but at least it's not an answer for the Bogle. And a Dog Umbra. So, what's my best play available? I'm scheduled to take 10, but that's easily going to be more. If I attack, our opponent can block. I could use Dog Umbra to save the Bogle. That's not all that exciting. If I play a second Ancestral Mask, what happens? Then these both give +4/+4. So then we have 10, 11, so it's not quite lethal. But then I could maybe block the Germ at least. So that's probably the play, and keep land in hand for another familiar. Because yeah, if I attack, I'm basically dead. Now I can still maybe survive. They can also move the ram, but it will cost 2 mana. And Dog Umbra is also +4 power at instant speed here if we attack next turn. So we'll have to see how things line up. Opponent did have another familiar, so glad we kept the land in hand. So that would have killed us. Okay, so what happens if I attack? Does our opponent play around Dog Umbra? I mean, at this point, I think I have to go for it. If they double block with the Cranial Ram Germs, I would also be happy. If they take it, they die. So jumping with one creature would actually be ideal. Alright, opponent takes it, so Dog Umbra could also enchant the opponent's creature, but it doesn't matter. We've got Xaxes. Super close game. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have what looks like a keeper. Of course, we'd trade a land for an extra aura. But, yeah, saves us from having to mulligan a bunch. So you can think of the lands as being freebies. Turn 1 Swamp, so opponent could be prepared for the aura decks. And yeah, the turn 1 discard spell just arrives a little bit too late. If our opponent's on the play here with the Divest, then our game plan can fall apart. So they had the right idea, but I guess they just didn't get the luck they needed. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Definitely have a keeper. 2 creatures can protect against an edict. And we've got both colors, some decent auras. Opponent on turn 1 plains. Mono white, high toughness maybe. So for now, I guess we can Angelic Gift. Try and hit a land drop for Ancestral Mask and Squire's Devotion. So there might be some effects that let us deal damage equal to its toughness. Alright, maybe just an aura deck as well. But yeah, it does not have hexproof. I see. Solid footing, so yeah, now it deals damage equal to its toughness, so that is a pretty fast clock. Although if they don't have a way to give it hexproof at instant speed, then something like a Dog Umbra could punish them. And Ancestral Mask is also pretty good here. I kind of like Squire's Devotion first, just to make that chum blocking lifelinker. And then next turn Ancestral Mask should put us out of range. Opponent's got the pacifism, slight downgrade compared to Dog Umbra. So we take 6. But we're about to slam down the big payoff here. Not sure what the foretold card could be, maybe a pump spell. But yeah, the Ancestral Mask also growing off the opponent's auras. And yeah, our opponent scoops it up. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. No green mana means we get a mulligan. No creatures either. Once again. We've got a keeper. Just hoping for more auras now. Opponent on the red aggro with percussionists, so kind of a go wide aggro deck perhaps. And yeah, if we don't find lifelink, we could be in a bit of trouble. Since our opponent doesn't have to bother with hexproof creatures, so their stats are usually a bit more efficient. Archers next, so they are casting non-creature spells. So actually don't hate attacking here, hoping our opponent blocks. So we can use Dog Umbra for the Umbra armor to save the Bogle. That did not pan out. Because that would be a better way of getting rid of the Archer compared to trying to put an Dog Umbra on it, since it does not remove the ability. Yeah, I think I'll save Dog Umbra for my Bogle. Pyromancer deals 2 when it enters. So, yeah, we're currently a little bit behind. Ethereal Armor helps. So now I'm going to want to play the Dog Umbra to pump up my creature even more. Opponent's not going to block here, so they could remove their own Pyromancer to shrink down the Bogle, but don't think they're going for it. Would let us hit for 6, so then there's a couple top decks that can maybe present lethal next turn. But yeah, these are also the matchups why I prefer Blossoming Sands as opposed to the Desert that deals 1 damage. Because against aggro, our life total definitely matters. Opponent goes to attackers, leaves Percussionist back. And we found Helid's Pilgrim. So that getting another Ethereal Armor should be game. Unless they maybe remove their own Pyromancer. But even then we should be fine. GG's. Percussionist blocks. And they're gonna pump it up, so yeah, they were playing some pump spells. ×2. Does not pump toughness. ×3, so they were actually very close to lethal last turn. That's why it took them a while to do the math. Well, there we have it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a decent hand. Got both colors, a creature, and then some auras. Even if they're not the most exciting to start out, at least 2 of them replace themselves. And against red aggro, a lifelink is going to be huge. Because, yeah, some red aggro decks can certainly outrace us. Because it takes us a while to get set up. We might have mulliganed a bunch. Could still be artifacts. And grab the prize, discarding a sneaky snacker, so this is something completely different. A graveyard deck of sorts. Alright, still probably going for Squire's Devotion here. Currently don't have a way to attack past the snacker, even with flying. So it does look like a red-black artifact, or at least a sub-theme. Discarding a Faithless Looting. And we drew another Bogle. Start with Angelic Gifts. Audacity for Trample's nice, but still doesn't let me attack into the snacker. Yeah, maybe just go Bogle, tap lands. Could attack with a Vampire. Although it feels like they can get the snacker back pretty easily. Although it would be tapped. Opponent takes it. And now Epicure makes a blood token. Also has a bit of card draw synergy with a snacker, of course, with the blood tokens. Okay, so still a bit of a waiting game. Doesn't hurt to Angelic Gift on the other hexproof creature. And another one. Okay. So we're looking for Ethereal Armor. There it is. That lets us attack. And then, especially paired with Trample, it's going to be hard to stop, and our opponent scoops it up. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. No creature means we get a mulligan. And this we can keep. Third lane versus Dog Umbra. I think we're pretty likely to get there on the lanes. Dog Umbra can give us interaction if we're up against a mono-red aggro deck or an affinity deck. Our opponent on a pure life gain deck. So yeah, I think Dog Umbra is going to find some fine targets. Opponent reading Slippery Bogle. Okay, it is black-white, so they could have an Edict, but there's of course plenty of life gain synergies in black-white specifically. So it's just a matter of surviving these early turns and then setting up our huge battle cruiser. Medic draws a card when it dies. And a Nightmare makes me discard. I actually think we get rid of the Umbra here, since there's no creature I really care about shutting down. Ancestral Mask also grows with the opponent's Hopeless Nightmare, so they will be incentivized to sacrifice it to Scry 2 at some point. But just to be safe, I think I like the Devotion just to have an extra creature on the off chance that they have some sort of Edict. And then next turn we'll be able to attack. Alright, what does a Terror do? Lose one, gain one. Okay. Just taking one in the air. So Mask is currently +4. So they can profitably trade for the Bogle. And our opponent scoops it up. I'll take it. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. Do not have a hexproof creature. Heliod's Pilgrim by itself. Probably not worth keeping. But yeah, it's at least worth thinking about. Once again, no creature. And we can keep this. Alright, still need to find some of our more impactful auras. Up against either artifacts or mono-red aggro. If we don't need to Dog Umbra, we can set up our third mana for Devotion. Pyromancer is another good one. I think going for Squire's Devotion makes more sense. Angelic Gift is also an option now, but let's make sure we can play the Devotion next turn. Flying isn't super relevant in this matchup. We much more care about power enhancing effects. First Strike from Ethereal Armor can also matter. Okay, well, now I get a free attack in with Lifelink. I'm sure our opponent's holding a fistful of burn spells to take care of the 1/1. Now Heliod's Pilgrim especially powerful if we draw an untapped land to go with it, because then we can immediately play Ethereal Armor, or Audacity could also be good. A Vampire's happy to block the Pyromancer, even if they have a pump spell. Alright, let's find out. turn inside out, so they will get a Manifest Dread. And that's okay. I believe Kiln Fiend is also common, so that's another card that some of the red decks could be playing, especially if they're a build with lots of cantrips and pump spells. Ancestral Mask was a good one. So currently +2/+2. Still can't really attack into the 2/2 in case they have more pump spells. So then I might be better off with Angelic Gifts for flying. And then I wouldn't mind an untapped land. There's a bunch of 1-mana auras we could draw. So attack for 2. And then now Dog Umbra's probably going on the face-down card. Would also enhance our Ancestral Mask going forward. Another Pyromancer. So Ancestral Mask would be +6/+6. Seems better than Pilgrim into Ethereal Armor. Or we can just draw the Ethereal Armor. Is this game over? It's gotta be close to it at least. That's gonna turn into +8. And Ethereal Armor is +5. So we're 1 short. But our opponent's gonna scoop it up. I'll take it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw with a nice hand. We've got the Scout, we've got the Ancestral Mask, the lands to cast him. Although Island is kind of scary for opponents keeping up a counterspell, since I wouldn't be able to play this until turn 2. Opponent taps out for Aerialist, so probably more of an Aura deck after all. Ward 2 is going to be difficult to pay for, but not impossible, so at some point we might be able to use our Dog Umbra. Of course, Ancestral Mask, huge in the mirror match, so wouldn't be shocked to see for opponents also playing green, or maybe blue-white for Ethereal Armor. Blue can maybe give access to some unblockable effects. Second Aerialist for now. So I'm less incentivized to run out my Ancestral Mask right now. Would only be +2. So instead we can Angelic Gifts. And maybe play another Sentinel's Eyes. Pilgrim's also important if we need lifelink, or if we want to get something like Ethereal Armor. Companion will draw. Also counts as an enchantment for Ancestral Mask. And a Frantic Inventory. Well, this seems like a bad attack. Okay, so time for Ancestral Mask. This is another +3, and our opponent scoops it up. Yeah, they're pretty dead here. So we get to see this green-white hexproof deck in action, and yeah, this is definitely an early contender for the best deck in the format. More people are probably going to start playing the deck once they figure out that Slippery Bogle is indeed now legal in the format, so then you might expect more mirror matches, which aren't particularly interesting, since it often boils down to who draws Ancestral Mask, since it also grows off opposing enchantments. So yeah, enjoy the deck while it lasts, because the mirror match is not going to be particularly fun to play. That being said, the Black-Red Affinity deck with Cranial Ram also looked incredibly powerful, and that's also a deck that can maybe adapt to the Hexproof deck by main decking Tithing Blade, so we might see the metagame adapt to take care of that. But yeah, for now, I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.